Hello and welcome to the February 28th edition of This Week in South Carolina in Session. I'm Gavin Jackson here at the Statehouse in Columbia. Well, the House and Senate have wrapped up their business today on Wednesday, which is usually their busiest day of the week. However, we didn't see too much going on in either house today. The House did wrap up earlier following the State of the Judiciary address from South Carolina Supreme Court Chief Justice Donald Beatty. Also, we got to hear from the governor today after a press conference he had with DMV Director Kevin Schwado dealing with Real ID and its rollout. We have details from that as well as details from the governor after the press conference, where we caught up with him to talk about his recent trip to Washington and several federal initiatives that he's looking to get implemented. One dealing with funding for the Port of Charleston and another dealing with an exemption for offshore drilling. So we got some more details coming up with that, as well as a bill that we saw House lawmakers push through dealing with the Public Service Commission. So let's start off right now with Governor Henry McMaster and his comments after that press conference today.
The message tomorrow at the School Safety Summit will be the same as what President Trump told me and told the other governors, and that is we're going to do whatever it takes to keep the children in this country safe while they're in school. We'll do whatever it takes. The question is, do you harden the schools with metal detectors and fences and doors, or do you have law enforcement officers there, trained, armed law enforcement officers? My answer to that is an emphatic yes. I've asked for that, the legislature for that in the budget. We must have the would-be shooters, the would-be killers. These people must know that if they go into the schools to hurt our children, that there will be immediate consequences and they will be stopped. And the only way to do that is to have armed, trained, certified personnel who are trained for this kind of thing there on that school campus. And efforts are underway now, both by the president as well as by us, by me, to see that that's done here in South Carolina. Anyone that is certified, if it's a coach, you have a lot of retired military personnel, we understand. But no, we need trained officers. We need people who are certified, who are skilled, who are familiar with weapons, who can know how to use them and know what to look for. And are, as I say, are trained and know that they're there for that purpose and are vigilant and determined to see that these children are not hurt. Anyone who is qualified, trained, and certified in the use of those kind of weapons should be allowed under state law to have and possess those weapons. The question is, where can they take it, and that needs to be addressed. Talked to a number of people, including the president. Of course, the first lady was there as well. Had Peggy. Peggy was with me. We spent a lot of time with the governors and over in the White House with the president and the chief of staff, General Kelly and Homeland Security Chief, as well as Wilbur Ross, the Secretary of Commerce, Ms. Chow, Secretary of Transportation, and a number of others. And I think I can say everyone is fully aware of our situation, and everyone, they all know that we need money for the port. We need the federal portion of the money to be paid for the port, so we can go ahead and get that work done. The thing that's put a wrinkle in the provision of that money is that we did things a little differently than any other state did, and that is we put up most of the money several years ago. We put up over $300 million several years ago, so we only need, I believe it's about $223 million more. We're ready to pay more than half of the money, but that fact does not fit nicely into the formula that they use to calculate who should and who should not get the money based on a cost-benefit analysis. And so that's what we're clearing up with them now, and we hope to be successful. No, I spoke briefly to Secretary Zinke of the Interior. As you know, he was here 2 weeks ago. We had a lengthy discussion about the pros and cons of the offshore drilling in South Carolina, but we've gotten no further information yet. We haven't expected to hear from them this quickly, but we are still in touch with them and are making the case for South Carolina.
And a Winthrop University poll released today found that 51% of South Carolinians are opposed to offshore drilling. Now, this is in contrast to 63% of Republicans who say that they are for offshore drilling, which puts Governor Henry McMaster in kind of a little bit of a bind here, considering that his party is a little bit more for this measure. However, he came out in his State of the State address in January saying that he is for exempting the state of South Carolina and its coastal waters from gas and oil exploration and drilling, saying that our natural resources and our tourism industry is just too important to risk. Now, he came up with that exemption after the state of Florida was tentatively given an exemption from the Trump administration for the same thing. Now, we're still waiting details. Like you heard the governor, he hasn't heard back yet from the Department of Interior about that request. However, it is something that he's going forward with. And again, those comments came after a press conference with DMV Director Kevin Schwado. Now, the two were talking about Real ID and the rollout of that Real ID, which is a more secure form of identification in South Carolina. It's really just a little bit of indicator. It's a gold star essentially on your new license that you get if you intend to fly or enter a federal military base or a federal secure building after 2020, September 30th, 2020. Now, if you don't intend to use your license to fly, or if you don't have any plans to go into a military base, or if you have a passport, then you don't need a Real ID. And again, that goes into effect October 1st, 2020. So if you do need a Real ID, you have until October 1st, 2020 to do that. We have details from Director Schwado coming up, and you can listen to his entire remarks on our YouTube page. SCETV's YouTube page has all 7 minutes of his remarks from today, giving you the details and the ins and outs of Real ID. You can also find those details at scdmvonline.com. Here's Director Schwado right now.
The biggest difference between a compliant and a non-compliant card, and you'll be able to come and look at these afterwards. The compliant card has a big gold star in the corner. A non-compliant card, and I'll repeat this a couple of times, has not valid for federal identification in big, bold, black letters. Every card the department issues today will either have a gold star on it or not valid for federal identification on it. But again, it is a completely voluntary program. You do not need a Real ID if you're not going to do one of those aforementioned activities.
South Carolina Supreme Court Chief Justice Donald Beatty addressed a joint assembly today of House and Senate lawmakers, where he gave his first State of the Judiciary address, which lasted about an hour. He outlined several goals he has for the judiciary, including a need for increased funding, both for IT updates, considering that the Supreme Court hosts a lot of data, a lot of legal data for counties around the state, and for the need for increased judicial pay, which has not risen in more than 2 decades. Here's Supreme Court Chief Justice Donald Beatty.
My assessment of the judicial branch revealed some troubling things about it. Some of our employees were using converted coat closets as workspace. Other employees were using converted file rooms for offices. Our IT equipment was approaching the end life of its cycle. And any of you who are familiar with IT equipment, 5 years is a long time for IT equipment. But when you get past that to 10 to 15 years, then you have a real problem. That's where we are. Our judicial pay has been the same since about 1995. Although there have been cost of living increases, 2% here, 3% there, to be quite frank with you, that money ended up being used to compensate or to cover for insurance premium increases or retirement increases. According to my financial department, if we look back through the years, our net increase has been 0.12%.
And school safety remains a top priority up here at the Statehouse, with House and Senate lawmakers discussing issues, as well as the governor, who is hosting a summit tomorrow here in Columbia with Superintendent of Education Molly Spearman and State Law Enforcement Division Chief Mark Keel. There'll be several panel discussions over that 4-hour time period, discussing mental health, school safety, and what needs to be done to protect educators and students. We heard comments from the governor earlier today. He's kind of been walking back his comments about arming teachers and maybe preferring SROs to be equipped, but at the same time he says if someone is certified and able to carry a gun, they should be able to do so on school grounds, and that includes teachers, not students. So definitely going to be seeing this play out in the Statehouse throughout the next several months as lawmakers are still in session through May 10th. Now, one bill that we have been seeing moving on, even though there's a lot of bills up here floating around the Statehouse, is S431, that's Senator Sin's bill that would make it a crime to threaten violence in school. Currently, right now is not really an exact science in terms of how you would be charged with a crime if you did threaten to shoot up a school, for example. But S431 is working through the committee process, and we have been following it. There was a hearing on it last week, and we expect it to go before the full Senate Judiciary Committee at some point soon. So stick with SCTV throughout the 2018 legislative session as we continue to bring live video updates every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday on SCTV's Facebook page, our YouTube page, and my Twitter account at Gavin Jackson. You can also find out what's going on up at the State House by going to scetv.org and checking out the State House Daybook, which has meeting schedules, agendas, and the top state news headlines. And listen to South Carolina Public Radio every day, where you can hear the news at the hour, and also hear State House Week on Fridays by Russ McKinney. I'm Gavin Jackson for ETV at the State House here in Columbia.